Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
Oh no, the cold opens
The
on me.
pantomime every time. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Synctank. How's it going? I'm Andreas, and this is Thomas. Thomas, what have you been up to?
Actually, just came out with a new Homunculus book this week, so
Is it done?
I'll talk about that later. It's done. Yeah, I've got it. It's in print. It's in hand.
Is there a way? Is there a link here somewhere?
It's right there. It was right in the center of the screen.
Oh my God!
The Homunculus owner's
The
manual.
Homunculus owner's manual is available now, and you can get it at paranoidamerican.com. That's pretty sweet. Sorry, just a shameless, instantaneous plug, but in case you hadn't already known about Paranoid American's MK Ultra pamphlet, which teaches you very detailed truths about, and nothing more or less than the truth about MK Ultra, then you're going to love to see the Homunculus. Yeah, let's also pull that up. Look at this. Physical, that's what it looks like. It feels nice in your hands. And then this is glossy.
Well, that one was cool. I got tape on. I've got a tape on.
That very cool. Yeah, pretty sweet. So yeah, make sure you order your Homunculus owner's manual. Get like a bunch of copies of them so you can hand them to your friends so that they know like exactly what they're doing by creating a homunculus, whether or not they realized that they were making one.
It is very detailed and intricate, and I want to say that it's probably the first and only current illustrated homunculus guide that has been published in the last 100 years.
Aww.
You know what this deserves? It deserves to be treated as a coloring book. Like colored pencils, maybe just go through. Like I have like the R. Crumb Genesis book, and I sew like I'm like it's like as soon as I put one, I put any ink on that paper, it's like I need to like do the whole thing. It's like that commitment.
It's a ritual, man. Coloring is very much like doing sigils almost. You kind of like zonk out and just I don't know. I love the whole.
It does have like 4 coloring books, which is pretty great. The Cult of the All-Seeing Eye coloring book is pretty sweet, and you can get a whole pack of them for $33. Get it?
In the BOTA, the Paul Foster Case School, everybody who goes through that, they all color all the 22 arcana. So they have the color of the cards in because you meditate on the color's meaning and how that all applies. In fact, Hodorowski's book on restoring the Marseille Tarot talks a lot about the significance of the colors of the cards, as does Daphne Moore's the Rabbi's Tarot, which is kind of hard to find.
It is interesting also, the specific colors of gangs and the specific colors of like Order of the Eastern Star, and how they frame, because they're doing this like round table, but the round table has more perspective when you're thinking about a color wheel, why things have a round table. But okay, also cryptocubrologist Alex, what have you been up to? I was looking at some of your stuff this week.
Not much. Just mourning the death of Cormac McCarthy. Treat Williams. Apparently, there's a little death cluster just now. Yeah, tripping out on some Donald Trump. connections that I found. Photographing chemtrails. That's
Yeah,
about
you've been
it.
seeing a lot of chemtrails this week. So what's up with this, man? I mean, I was just at the beach. I saw some chemtrails everywhere I go. And like, well, what I find interesting was that a few months ago, Mexico banned chemtrails, and for a week or two, you know, Seth on Venice Beach Sub Club was talking about how you know, chemtrails were gone essentially, like for a while, for a few, like a month almost. It was just a clear sky, and all of a sudden, full fury, chemtrails returned. And then there was just crazy weather in San Francisco, tornadoes in Los Angeles that Eddie saw, right? It felt like they were moving some of the chemtrails away from Mexico directly into the United States or along the coast or something like that.
It did feel like we had a lull in them, and now they seem to be back, or just over my house. I don't know.
Right.
But it's like, it's kind of, that was one of the first things that like led me down the path of conspiracy stuff. So I have a pretty funny memory of trying to convince my neighbor that the planes are spraying stuff in the sky. And but it's still going on, and it's still very confusing, and I still don't know what to think if it's actually.
Oh, I mean, they're full open with it now, right? So phys.org and everywhere they're going, they're like, it was this geoengineering is shockingly inexpensive, showing all the easy ways that we can do this. And, you know, you look into
well, for any skeptics too, there was a bill called HR 2977 that was passed in 2001 that explicitly called chemtrails an exotic weapons system on top of the geoengineering aspects.
Hey, Thomas, what was the thing that happened? So, like, I was trying to look this up the other day, and I was like, I swear there was more concrete evidence around this. The aerosol LSD over the town in France.
Well, no, it wasn't aerosoled, from what I understand.
They say it was from the bakery.
Well, that was
what
the
it says on
official
Wikipedia.
story. That was
like,
the official story, was that that it wasn't LSD, and that it was like an ergot poisoning that happened through the bakery because bakers use rye, and maybe that's the most logical.
Right. What a convenient cover story, though. It could go either way.
But it was in it was in the Big Mistake book. I can't remember. I think it might have been Averelli. I might have the name wrong. HP Averelli, I think. But I think he made the claim there that it might have been water. They basically tapped the water supply and put LSD in there, which is why it affected the entire town and not just the people that ate bread, which is it's silly. Like, you can't bake LSD into bread.
That happened in Santa Cruz in the 1960s. The FBI confiscated like barrels of acid, and they dumped it into the San Lorenzo River, and people drinking out of the water faucets, and I think even like a certain section of the apartment buildings, people taking showers or whatever the hell. So like there was a wave. I got this from this older woman who was like showing the one of the last properties I lived at. She was showing her granddaughter the property and talking about what it was like in the 60s. And so like she just started talking about Santa Cruz history and stuff, and she brought that up, and I was like, I had heard it before, but I thought it was like an urban legend when Santa Cruz got dosed in the water supply because of FBI not caring. But no, it's a true story.
Well, that's wild. So we had our own version of that, and I think the town in France was like Pont de Esprit or something like that.
Yeah, you just had the window open for it. Yeah,
that picture, like, I don't know, that circular rainbow around the sun, like, and the same thing I observed today. I took some more pictures of like the trails or whatever go right through the sun, like right, so it's like hard to see them. You have to look up at the sun to kind of even know that they're there. It's just and then it, water, it's that water vapor. It's a 90 degree day. I don't know. Doesn't seem like what it is. But anyway,
I think it's nice because we're far past pretending that chemtrails don't exist. Like 5 years ago, though, there were still some people in I remember it was in France, and trying to explain to them, like, how do you think you still have wine? Like, what do you think's going on? Like, do you understand? I think people were still slow on it a bit, but now it's just public knowledge that it's happening, and you want to be part of it. Well, I think even like the left and the right, like Fox and CNN, they're talking about how geoengineering is important and that we need to participate, and more important, not just participate, but lead, because otherwise China is going to do it.
First, it's not happening. And then, it's happening, but it's good.
It could be good if we're doing it. If someone else does it, how do you know it's good? So you have to be the one to do it.
Not poisoning, but something to do with
You think the climate's bad now? You should see what it looked like if we haven't been spraying chemtrails for the last
5G.
Would have been so much worse. Say the line, Bart.
Well, you were talking about France and California too. Another interesting thing that not recently, but I heard that blew my mind when I heard it was the Great French Wine Blight, that a majority or a large portion of vineyards in France exist and are still growing California grapes because they had a big drought.
California. This is why France puts up with us. I think they're like, okay, with California, you can stay. And I think it's
thanks for the grapes.
Yeah, I mean, it's otherwise, but also the geoengineering is a major. This is happening all over the world, and particularly in China, they've talked about it. What's interesting about China is they have stakeholding by the government of corporations and nonprofits. So Greenpeace is 51%. The Chinese Greenpeace is 51% controlled by the Chinese government. And the Chinese Greenpeace has probably done more good than any other Greenpeace because it's in part of the government. So it's forced things to work. But they're also in the process of working for geoengineering and trying to turn parts of the desert green because they have a desert that's like 1,000 square miles. So the idea of running water through it and starting to turn it green, that's something that they've been planning since way before they realize feedback loops will destroy them if they do this. And so they're not going to stop, right? So there will be a lot of parts of the world that are changing very rapidly. We talk about climate change. It's not climate change in the sense of, can you stop using plastic bags? It's more that they're going to inject liquid aerosol of that plastic into the environment. I don't know. What about David? What have you been up to? Synctank.
Oh, what have I been up to? I don't know. I didn't do much. I'd recommend Chemtrails Over the Country Club with the Misfits with Marilyn Monroe. But just if you got my page up.
How far down do I have to go to find that?
Not that far. It should be a little ways. Where is it? Did you go past it already? Maybe.
I may have.
Yeah, I think you did. It's up there. Yeah, it's right there. It says "Gone with the Candle in the Wind," lower right corner.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that one. I recommend this. I have like a 15-minute like documentary kind of compilation that I put together that communicates around the country club that Marilyn Monroe designed that was originally meant to be her like dream home or whatever that she had with Arthur Miller. And then Arthur Miller filed for divorce right when production started for this film, The Misfits. And she didn't get her dream house, but years later it was her design was made into a country club on Hawaii. And so there's all this kind of symbolism there of relating Marilyn Monroe to what became just a country club, what her where she was putting all her eggs in her basket didn't come to fruition. And she died right after this film, very shortly after this film. This was her last movie. And also, what's his name from Gone with the Wind? Main guy from Gone with the Wind. I'm being dumb right now.
Clark Gable?
Clark Gable, yeah. Clark Gable, this was his last film too, and he died before Marilyn Monroe when production ceased for this movie. This movie also culminates at Black Rock City, Burning Man, long before Burning Man, obviously. Anyway, no. What have I been doing? I didn't do much today. I did a tweet that was like a long thread of just like explaining the thing with adding up the 12 diagonals of the Kabbalistic tree and the significance around that. So I don't know. I think Alex, you saw that at least.
Yeah, I did. I read it.
It's like it's so central to like, it's like I did 10 years of study, and there's certain things that like came out and I like try. I'm like, I want to like break this down like PowerPoint presentation. Like, how do you just explain this in the simplest terms to get out the most important parts? Because there's a million. It's the thing with Kabbalah. It's like there's so many different avenues you can go down. Like there's like a million tangents attached to the thing, but it's nice to just that's not it, that's my pinned tweet, but that's also kind of related. But yeah, so that's just
where do I find the thing
you're at it, but it's like it's so weird the way Twitter works. Like it doesn't always do it right in orders. Like the first one is there. That's the last one of the thread, but yeah, if you go up from there,
do replies with replies, it might be hidden.
Yeah. I got that. I changed my header for Twitter to when Kirsten Dunst was looking over at Lars von Trier, and I took the title card of Melancholia, which was like "Enjoy it while it lasts," and this was long before the thing with Kanye. I had kind of put together like taking that Star of David swastika image and like just inserting it there because it just felt oddly applicable because of his views. So if you ever watch him at Cannes when he got blacklisted from Cannes, I don't know. I think it's funny. My rabbi thought it was funny. So, you know,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. He had that. He didn't. He grew up if you know the story of Lars von Trier, he grew up believing that he was Jewish, at least on his father's side. And then when his mother was on her deathbed, she revealed that the man who he thought was his father wasn't actually his father, and that his father was actually a Nazi composer who she had had a child with through eugenics just for the genes, for the artistic genes. And so he discovered that, had a kind of a mental breakdown around it. And then the movies Antichrist, Melancholia, and Nymphomaniac, which he refers to as his American trilogy, even though they don't take place in America. You know, those are basically his own process around his identity.
American genre.
What part of that process? Because I remember Antichrist is just like 15 minutes of Willem Dafoe's balls at the beginning.
That's not what it is.
Actually, so you know that balls getting hammered.
Dogma films take place where they have a rule that they have to shoot on location. You can't use props that don't come with your location. You can't use unnatural lighting. And the American trilogy, he uses a studio with a set and lights and stuff. So it's American in the 1930s sense of an American studio.
Thank you. That's well said. Yeah, no, that is the thing. And so, yeah, you're not actually looking at Willem Dafoe's dick for that 5 seconds or whatever felt like 5 minutes.
That's more French.
You're actually you're looking at somebody else's dick, because the story goes is that Willem Dafoe's dick was too big for it to be believable.
There might be more
for the authenticity of the scene, and so that's actually a stunt dick because of Willem Dafoe's giant situation.
Yeah, which Brian Prisbeck, my former boss and friend, can back up. So we watched this video the other night, which is kind of random. Kwaku, which means I think like the child born on Wednesday, which I don't know if he knows this, but I was interested in this for a whole bunch of reasons. Let's see, Kwaku, Mormon. First off, we talked about Joseph Smith being an abolitionist and how Abraham Lincoln kind of is based his character on Joseph Smith, the abolitionist from Illinois, because that's what Abraham Lincoln was running as and how he was announced to the Americans. And also how he was freaking out about secret combinations, like this whole idea that there's a bunch of secret groups, combined peoples, and they have these secret plans, and that the difference is that they're working for the betterment of themselves at the cost of the detriment of others. And so he was starting to uncover a bunch of these things that were going on in Washington, and it's likely he was assassinated. But right before that, he had blacks in the church. There's this dude, Walker Lewis, who was one of the first black Mormons. And apparently his first name was really Kwaku. Don't know if that guy knows it. Just a total random thing that I found. Anyway, he was talking about theosophy and is saying the Book of Mormon is theosophy. And so, yeah, we watched this. What did you guys think about that, by the way?
I really enjoyed it. You guys?
No, I thought he had some really good insight, and I just love the connection between Blavatsky and Mormonism. I don't know if I felt the connection as deeply, but it I like, you know, discussing Mormonism in that kind of a context, a much more esoteric, I guess, interpretation of it. And it reminded me too of how Joseph Smith and the gold plates and, you know, interpreting these hieroglyphics that no one else could at the time, because Blavatsky did something very similar. She had this book of Zani or something like that was written in a language that no one had ever heard of and no one's ever seen.
That's the secret doctrine you're talking about.
Correct. Yeah,
totally, exactly. And so like I felt like it was like he made a really good point that there's a resonance there, but he didn't put it that way. He's saying literally, you know, that guy had a bit of like little things that like disinfo here and there that were kind of like, oh, actually, like I felt I had that coming up a lot, but he reminded me of myself. Like, I don't know how old he is, but it was like, he reminded me of like when I was like going to like, he's somebody who I would have met at a rainbow gathering. You know what I mean? Like he's got this enthusiasm. That's this youthful enthusiasm. And I just, you know, watching that, I don't know who that guy was. I was watching that other video, the guy's React video. Talking about this,
right?
And it was just like, dude, that guy, that the way he was treating it, it just reminded me of these like really grumpy old adults when I was like in my 20s, you know, who were just like, oh, whatever. Like I'm like he's naive, he's idealistic, he's whatever, and it's like he's excited, and he should be excited about study, and he's just his main thing is just like just read. Like instead of, and I liked his message. I thought he was coming from a really good place, and like he's going to learn things along the way, and I still have more to learn myself. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was interesting just like thinking about the Book of Mormon more that way because, for one thing, people will often say he was either divinely inspired by God or that he was like a charlatan. And then I was thinking, like, how hard is it? Like, put a hat over your head and then come up with a Shakespearean novel, without, well, a bunch of people are watching you under pressure and you have to like kind of imagine maps and stuff. And he's got a 3rd grade education. So it is kind of interesting. And it reminds me of some of the stuff you hear in the Theosophic Society about median work and channeling and everything like that. I'm not saying it isn't divinely inspired or that it is, but that it does feel more on that wave than it does. Like it feels more like median work than it does just completely, dude come up with a bunch of stuff, right? I mean, maybe, but like I think the median work thing is interesting.
Andreas, could you refresh my memory on something? I feel like we discussed this before, but there was some kind of, I don't know, some bombshell of sorts, if you could call it that, where it was like the salamander thing. Oh, like the salamander was an alchemical symbol, and he had this communication with his salamander, but then there was some other writing of his that came out, and then people tried to like.
So this is actually kind of interesting, and one of the reasons I like kind of am more interested in the Mormons, because like, okay, so first off, the Salamander letter's not real, but that's awesome, and it should be. And the Mormons for a while entertained that it could be, like the Mormon Church itself. And
is this the guy that scammed him? That was making count?
Totally.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So what happened was there's this dude named Mark Hoffman who's a murderer and a forger and a counterfeiter, and it's totally proven. And he like blew up buildings and tried to, and he killed somebody. And luckily, one of the dudes who was just this Mormon with money who was trying to buy these documents, because like a lot of Mormons were open to it. They're like interested, like, oh, maybe there is more there, and we don't have it all, and we're not pretending we do. Like the Mormons don't think that the Bible, the way it is now, is perfect. That's a big part of why they have their living interpretation, right? So they're thinking, okay, well, maybe there's something to the Salamander lever. They couldn't get more of the things because he demanded more and he wanted more money for more things. So he just tried to blow the guy up. And then they started the investigation and they found out by that point, the Mormon Church had bought the Salamander letter itself, had been like, okay, well, maybe it's real. And then they were like, well, how would we deal with this? And that's what's so cool about the Mormons. Like that they would figure out like, all right, like, let's see, we've got these pieces and we got to build a religion that gets us from Earth to the moon. That's they're very creative in that respect. And they figured out how to deal with it. And they're like, but I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think it matters if it was like a salamander or not. And then eventually they were like, it's not real. So, but I mean, I think it's
could there be middle ground though between making it up and divinely inspired? Because what if the divine inspiration part is just bits and pieces, but no one wants to follow just bits and pieces?
Isn't it the same thing people say about the Book of the Law?
Yeah.
And Scientology, I think, it's like 19th century Scientology.
I would say exactly that. Scientology and Latter-day Saintism are very similar in the sense that they're trying to realize based on information. For instance, they'll do away with Adam and Eve for science, for evolution, if evolution gives them more information and data. So they're really adaptable in a lot of ways, very flexible. Like they'll be willing to talk about 13 different hominids because you've got Cain and all these different things that are happening. But the thing is, with both Scientology and Latter-day Saints, what they believe is so much weirder than what people think they do, right? Like it's the same thing with the Jews. Like everyone thinks that the Jews and the Mormons are soaking, right? Like what they're actually doing is probably weirder. Like it's not weirder in like the Eyes Wide Shut temple sense. But they do have a temple, and they're trying to become gods. They want to become a planet. And I think that's more like the fact that the idea of being a Mormon is that you're not becoming a servant of God, you're becoming a co-heir like with Christ. So you're becoming God, Christ-like, right? Which so many Christians are like, you can't be Christ-like. Christ died for you. You got to just worship him. No, they want you to become a freaking world, and that's pretty interesting. Like that is a very similar to Scientology and to the Veda. The idea also that the former persons that ascended masters can become full worlds. I mean, this is a bigger, broader, and kind of theosophic idea.
Right, but all of these schools that we're talking about have all been, I don't want to use the word hijacked because that kind of misses the point. But they've been kind of directed in certain ways that when you look at their
Mormonism
origins,
banned black people for like 100 years. It can't be dismissed, and the Catholic Church has pedophilia at the highest levels. I mean, yeah. So
right. Well, there's that side of it, but there's also just from a philosophical standpoint. So, like you and I know that, like if you look at the writings of Alice Bailey, they don't necessarily reflect a lot of the ideas and views of Helena Blavatsky. And so, but that's true. That's true everywhere. But even like these people themselves, like went through shifts. Like Isis Unveiled doesn't read the same way as The Secret Doctrine necessarily, but you can see that they're clearly written by the same person. It's just she's developed her ideas. And so, if you look at different periods in Crowley's life, it's like it almost feels like you're reading a different person, almost, But I guess that's what you'd expect.
That was the difference between mescaline and heroin, essentially.
Oh, right. And age too,
The other thing is like, so with the Book of Mormon, like it's a lot more like Star Wars, and I think that they're more open to space and to like the idea that like the way people come back and they look like ghosts of themselves, like they have like a full body that looks like God looks like a man. When people think of God as like this man thing, that's the Mormon God, pretty much only. Most other religions don't do that, right? That he looks like that.
Right. Did any of you guys see the Book of Mormon on Broadway?
I'm gonna go see that actually. I'm gonna see it.
I saw it in London. It was incredible.
Yeah, I saw it here in Orlando. Yeah,
I've seen like the footage of it, like because on archive.org someone recorded it. And you can watch it. But
I want to see footage of it still. I've seen it. I'd love to see that again. But
yeah.
So, but the thing is, so I'm sitting there, and this guy in intermission, I take a cigarette break, and this guy, I'm out there smoking with this guy, and he tells me that he's from the place in Africa. I can't remember where it takes place. Where do you guys remember that?
I don't remember, but Africa? He goes on mission. That was
so he was from that particular village or whatever, and he was like, "That's where I'm from," and I was like, "No shit," and he was like, "Dude, nobody told me." Like he was like, "I'm tripping out right now," and I was like, "Are you pissed?" And he was like, he said to me, he goes, "I would be, but they didn't say anything that isn't true." and so if I remember this right, my friend who I went to see that with, she had an experience because she had seen it before where there was Mormons in the audience who were like seated near her, and if memory serves, they said the same thing to her. Yeah. Are you like at intermission, like or after whatever it was, and it's like, "Are you offended?" It's like, well, they haven't said anything that isn't true, and I believe that Trey Parker and Matt Stone, like that, they expertly navigated that because they're like, we're not gonna insert rubbish because the thing as it stands is weird enough and interesting enough. But that, spoiler alert, that's what this kid is kind of like. He's there for the missionary work, but he's a slacker. He's not really into it.
Yeah, he doesn't really know all the intricate details of his religion. Like
my friend just sent me a message and said that is true. So we both had that experience. So it's her with Mormons and me with a guy who was from the place. So it's like, but yeah. So he basically comes up with his own story because he can't sell these people who are dealing with all this really harsh realities, AIDS and just pedophilia and all this stuff that they're describing. And then they're like, how do you sell them on this religion? And so he basically like takes Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, puts them together, forms his own he comes up with his own elaborate religion, gives it to the people that they were supposed to be, indoctrinating into Mormonism. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, being missionaries for this cause. And then eventually, I'm spoiling the whole thing, I don't care. And so eventually, like the heads of the Mormon church or some heads show up to see, they're like, oh, wow, he's converted a lot of people. Let's go check that out. And then the people on their own had put together a play to show what it was that they had learned. And so there's just showing them Star Wars and Lord of the Rings combined together to be this other elaborate story.
With Joseph Smith, right?
Yeah, and it worked for them. It was like, and then he kind of gets excommunicated at the end, but then he forms his own church with his own religion. And so I think their criticism was, hey, if you made it up anyway, you just make up what you want,
I mean, well, that is an interesting thing with all of these religions. So America, you've got a breakaway sect, and then Brigham Young takes over the church or is selected or whatever it is. But you've got people even at that point saying, like, wasn't the point that there was an apostasy? There's a breakaway. So can't we just continually break away? But then they're saying that they have the power of miracles. but then they can't stop COVID. So it makes you wonder about the power of the church, as much. You've got, I mean, their current priest or prophet is supposed to be he's a surgeon, right? Who's like supposed to be like the most expert in medicine, and did not do all the Melchizedek parting of the red blood cells the way we were promised, I guess.
The way that Mary Baker Eddy did. I mean, come on, let's be honest. If it wasn't for Mary Baker Eddy, the species wouldn't even have survived. Those people have been holding it down. That whole like thing where people don't take any medications. It's like I've met some of those people that like they never had an aspirin. And you're like, how healthy is that? I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I saw this thing that seemed kind of interesting that was saying like another way that Mormonism is similar religions is similar to Hinduism. And I thought that was interesting also because you've got this religion that's pretty big, billion odd people believe in, and it is about ascension, right? We talked about that, the idea that you're kind of trying to become a manifest godlike person. Also karma, hugely part of, you don't just have like atonement and just stay there. You have to constantly do good, and you have to pay back for, I mean, the early Mormons had atonement, even they had sacrifices and things like that. So pretty much. And then Dharma, you could say Calvinism is similar, but there's a lot of that idea of like where you're placed by, God's given you like opportunity. And then this oneness, right? That even though there's lots of different gods, it's kind of like there's lots of different planets and stars, and that there's like still a universe. I mean, it seems like they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. And I wonder, do you think that there's like, is that just because like obviously that's what you find is truth, or is it because what is the reason you think?
Seems like Mormonism and Scientology, they're kind of like they're not really religions, they're like corporations, or they're like weird like little institutions that kind of have just aped what has worked in the past and just updated for a modern presentation because it works. And some of it's legit, some of it's not, maybe,
well, I mean, if we're talking about Hinduism, I mean, Hinduism emerged in the great relativity of time significantly later than the philosophies itself that it purports.
There's also like Church of Hinduism.
Right.
So well, like there's a bunch of different versions of Mormonism. There's also a bunch of different versions of Hinduism.
We were talking about this earlier in the show too, but Gandhi, he got inspired to become, the father of India after joining Theosophical, society. So, and I realized too, the Theosophical Society was founded in America. It was founded by non-Americans essentially, but they came to America in order to found it.
Yeah. Right, and we need to like context of Theosophy. Keep in mind that like the West, and it includes Europe, was not exposed to Eastern philosophy. Like Indian philosophy, like that, until Theosophy was kind of the first people to kind of like break that mold of just going and finding all of that and making it accessible to Western
you could
people.
probably make an argument for Scottish Rite in a way, because they had a lot of like Eastern connection, but I don't think it was as much into the esoteric occultism of Blavatsky.
Outside of like initiating orders, because even though you could argue what became of Theosophy still feels that way, like whatever they have at the UN with the people walking around in purple robes meditating and stuff, like that's loses trust. That's its own thing. But like Theosophy itself is just like an intellectual area of study that really is, like the guy was saying in the interview, he's saying it embraces there's no religion higher than truth, and they mean that. So it's just like it actually, I see Theosophy as closer to whatever the founding fathers kind of more Masonic religion really was than like most other philosophies or religions. I
find it interesting. Like Joseph Smith's brother Hiram, I think, is older, right? And so he was a Mason. Joseph Smith didn't become a Mason until like right before, a couple years before he was assassinated. And so a lot of the story is that he was maybe assassinated for betraying the secrets of the coven by incorporating them into the church and saying like, now these things should be like part of, maybe not fully for accessible to everybody.
It happened within 2 months too, because I think he joined the lodge in like March, and then he kind of had his own twist on it within the church by May. So within 2 months, So I mean, he had no chill about the situation. Like he didn't play the long game.
Yeah, but that's also interesting because he did have rituals already before that were pretty Masonic, and so it seems like interesting that he's already doing things that are. I mean, so if some of these rites that the Masons and the Hermetic Order and the Theosophists are keeping do come, they're not just made up; they do come from something. Then, if he's tapping into the same thing, and he's saying like, I have a more direct authority to these things, and you guys can continue to use them, but they're not, you don't have a direct authority, right? Like that probably was a major, reason why he was killed. I would think that'd be a big part of it. And, but also they got rid of a lot of the Masonry in the church. Like they've taken out a lot of the rituals. I mean, they still have, the temple marriage, temple rituals and everything. But they were like plays. There's only a few temples that still do it like that. So I find that interesting because a big thing was trying to incorporate Masonry, but then also remove Masonry because there shouldn't be secret societies. And then now there are Masons and Mormons because you can be both, even though for a long time they were against each other, right?
I'm trying to find his name, but one of the brothers in my lodge is both a Mason and a Mormon, and he's got a bunch of videos on YouTube that go into like how he can sort of get them to both work together in his mind.
Also, like, so it's interesting thinking about their ancient, like, they're trying to live like a biblical lifestyle, and in the Bible you got like Joseph with many wives, so polygamy comes up, right? So you're in America during a Puritan time when people are super against polygamy and super sexually repressed and religiously repressed, and then saying, okay, here, and for the most part, people are looking at this group saying, here's this group of people that are, they're like the Moors, they're the Mormons, right? Because they're all into polygamy and this kind of Arabic sultan harem lifestyle is the way it was projected to like most of the Americans. But I mean, polygamy even. You guys have thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, I mean, there's so many aspects. It's almost identical. The Mormon initiation rites and Freemasonry. It's like it's directly an offshoot. Is that's true, right?
Yeah, well, and there's been, I mean, interesting discussion that a lot of the early Mormons, when Joseph Smith did that, he was like purifying the Masonic ritual, that the Masonic ritual had somehow become kind of perverted over time. Like Andreas was saying, it kind of was being used to self-serve instead of like serve humanity. And I guess that was like one of the original tenets of Masonry, is it's supposed to uplift all of, humanity and not just one little lodge. So I guess there was that interpretation that this was like a return to the more pure aspects of it, which makes removing it later interesting. It just feels like it got occulted. It didn't get removed, it got occulted.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wonder about that because also like a couple of years ago they removed the different there's different groups of the church, like there's different wards, and they had different structures, like hierarchy structures. They like removed all the ward structure hierarchy, so it didn't, imagine like you had lodges and some of those lodges had their own secrets. They did away with all of that, and that used to matter because it was like if you go to heaven you're like a choir of angels or something like that, because they kind of imagine themselves as like chess pieces on a big strategic battlefield. Oh, Eddie made it. What's up,
40,
Eddie?
40 chess that I've been hearing about. 5D chess I've been hearing about.
Well, he'll be back. Seth,
sound good.
Beach Club Club, more like Synctank. That's right. Yeah,
good.
You know it.
I'm sure Eddie will be back. Eddie, you didn't get beaten just now. You're not being hostage, are you?
Home invasion.
No home invasion.
That would be bad. That would be something for timing.
I mean, I guess we could talk about the Amazon thing. This is like a major departure, but I thought it was interesting.
I'm curious, before we go away from the Mormonism, I am curious why the polygamy thing seems to be such like the big stickler issue to the point where people, left the country and they kind of, I guess, declared that they no longer do it officially within the Mormon religion. But of all the things that religions have been accused of and all the ways that they can corrupt people, like, where's polygamy in that? Is it just that it's like a really creative way to cheat on taxes?
I think it's like again with the sexual repression that they were. Are you talking about why people are against it? Because like,
why is it?
As a Californian, I have to say, as against it, sexual repression, and because women were property and men were basically property during the feudal period, and so you would have dowries and you'd trade your children. And the idea that you could have choice, let alone that you could have your own family. I mean, this seemed like being a lord, and they would beat the idea that you could become more than a serf out of you very young. So, you know, the idea that your wife was yours, even like, no, she belongs to the church, and then the lords can rape them. I mean, that is a major part of society. So it was beaten out of people. And whereas in other parts of the world, polygamy is not that strange, particularly around the equatorial region, there's a lot of cultures that practice polygamy. And who knows whether it's good or bad, because obviously there's different levels of that. There's, you know, Brigham Young had 50 wives, and wife 19 wrote a book about it, and she wasn't stoked. So I go ahead and say that the way it was, wife 19, interesting book about the 19th wife. I think she was like 27 when he was like 50. Brigham Young was like 5'2" and lost all his teeth by the time he was like 41. Like, he's not a guy you want to be married to, let alone have 50 wives. And maybe you're hopeful that it's 50, because you only have to see him like once a 3 months or something like that in that circumstance. But that's not what, I mean, you look at the pictures of the founding Mormons, a lot of them are like hard women. You know what I mean? They worked hard, and the men were hard. And I mean, I get the feeling that they were stoked on their life. I see a lot of these pictures of polygamists, and you know, even today, they're like with their caves and their different families, like lions. You've got a bunch of different cats, and they don't want to live together, you know?
Well, the whole show Big Love it dramatizes it pretty well. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, but Tom Hanks made it, so I'm always going to be, you know.
Isn't there like a business side to that as well? In the same way that, like, for royalty, you diplomacy, you like bring together different nations through marriage.
I think that's
and you
what
have a child, and
Smith.
That's the prodigy and the whole thing. But
looking at Joseph Smith, he was forced into several agreements and alliances. That his wife was super. Emma Smith was a major against polygamy, and like started a whole other church basically on the condition of there's no polygamy here, you know, and that's why she didn't go to Utah with Brigham Young.
Right. I mean, I guess I can't help but like think like, because I don't. This is just completely speculative. I have no idea about this stuff, but I'm like, seems like if there was a business side to it, like it's like you have dealings going on with these people here and these people there. It's like you're like, is he like just like marrying all their daughters or something?
Yeah,
like, is that a part of it? Or?
Yeah, totally. Joseph Smith had several people that were like, they wanted into the family, they wanted into the choir. They gave him their daughter essentially in that purpose, and he wasn't allowed to do it. But like, it was so culturally ingrained at that time to do that. So he had these celestial marriages where he wasn't really married to them in real life and didn't ever like meet them in real life. But then they were married, and you know, because his wife would like, supposedly Emma Smith tried to poison him once when she found out that he had several secret marriages, you know, so there's that. But I mean, the thing is, it was not like it led to more children. Joseph Smith didn't have like any, I don't think he had any, Joseph Smith did not have a single child that we have any evidence of from any of his polygamous marriages. So it didn't like produce like thousands of Smith offspring, which, you know, I think is interesting. And in Utah, right, there were enough men and women that there was never a point where you really needed to practice polygamy, except for maybe coming out of the Missouri War, because after Order 44, where they killed a bunch of Mormons, there were probably a bunch of widows. So yeah, marrying widows or something like that, like you could say justified biblically, but mostly it's just because in the Bible there's polygamy. And they're like, well,
right. Solomon had how many wives? 500 or something?
And it does say a king should not have too many wives. But like, if Solomon had 500, then like 50 is probably fine.
Well, it's like absolutely fabulous. Like, you can't have too many hats, belts, and shoes. You know,
yeah. You can never have too many wives. Yeah, exactly. You can't have too many wives. All right. I think it's more like one's too many. What do you say, Eddie?
In ancient China, they just, you know, the emperors will hoard like 2,000-3,000 women. They call it Len Gong, meaning the cold palace. Len Gong,
right?
Meaning the emperor would not even see any of these women. The entire life is just wasted in the palace.
Hey Eddie, can we do like
they'll flirt around with the eunuchs, because some eunuchs are not completely, you know, sliced off. So
yeah, I was trying to find Mao's sex palace, right? Because Mao had one too. Chairman Mao had a huge sex palace with like Olympic pools and just like 2,000 women that were just like there on call, like 9 to 5.
China has a sure there's a woman. So think how powerful these men are. Just like, hey, it's all mine.
Hey, can we do like a sketch that's like a play on hoarders, but it's like people who are hoarding too many wives, where it's just like you go like an intervention. You're like, okay, this is just too many wives. You're like, oh well, I need that wife. Like, come on, maybe you could just like one wife.
That was the thing with the Romneys, right? So like the Romney, his family went monogamous. His grandfather was polygamous, but after the 1890 thing, though there are sects, and so a bunch of people talked about the kidnapping of the Romney family in Mexico a few years ago. Do you remember this? Right?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of conspiracy theories about that, right? Like, how many women do they have down there in Mexico? How many women did they kidnap based on how many women did Romney keep in his den?
Yeah, weren't they like
binders full? No,
I shouldn't laugh.
There were like 9 people killed, right? The shootout,
right?
The cartel. I don't know how they got into the ranch, but they start. Yeah.
Do you think he could have had a better chance if he would have ran on like, my family is in a shootout with the cartel right now? Vote
Definitely.
for me.
Yeah, because that would have been kind of like saying, like, look what the Democrats are doing. I don't know.
You know what was the strangest thing I saw when I was in Mexico? Were the Amish people? Were not really Amish, but what do you call them? The Mennonites.
Yep.
The Mennonites were there, and they were on the freeway when there's traffic jam on the Mexican freeway, which often happens. They'll be selling fruits and cookies, and like here's a blonde guy like reaching into my window. Hey, you want some cookies in Spanish?
Oh my God.
like fluent Spanish, but it's bizarre. I was like, hey, you look a little like Nazis. What are you doing down here? blonde hair, blue eyes.
One thing though, if Mennonites give you food, you can be pretty sure it doesn't have any of those preservatives in it. It's going to be like some really good apple butter and like fresh butter and.
Oh yeah. I think I bought it. I think I bought their cookies, and that wasn't too bad.
Even if they're wearing Reeboks, the apple butter is legit.
Mexico must have some kind of leniency where they can have these. You can have your polygamy cults down there easily. I mean, the cartels are doing it.
Well, like, so one of the things though is like, because they're obsessed with their church and their church says that they cannot be polygamous since 1890, then they have to break off from their church, right? If they want to be polygamous. So those sects down there, it's kind of like anarcho Latter-day Saint, because they think that they've got their own apostle, or that they've got some sort of a message from God, some divine inspiration themselves, that they're allowed to break away and to do that. It's not like something that they can just do. So they have to leave. They have to be excommunicated from the church, but they have to think that's okay because the church isn't important, which I think is kind of like, that's the paradox for them. They have to like literally say that every other Mormon is wrong in order for them to do that still. So it's not as common as I think people think it is. And the groups that do that, they literally, like, what's his name, right? The dude who's in jail right now. Warren Jeffs, right? You guys know about Warren Jeffs?
He had like the child brides, right?
Yeah, dude. So like,
this fucking guy,
right? So he's like, I'm a Mormon, right? But like, is he? And like, he's got like 100 brides that are all like 8, and like video of it. And his rituals were like, okay, we can do the temple ritual wedding, but you have to have sex on the altar in front of everybody, which is just not the way, as far as I can tell, it ever goes back to that.
Dude, if you were like at some party and you're like high and you looked over at that guy, that picture right there, and somebody smiled at you like that,
I can tell when someone comes from a line of cannibals. Yeah, if you're asking.
Terrifying.
He kind of looks like Stephen Greer. That
he does, yeah. Stephen Greer probably comes from a line of cannibals.
Has the same smile, same wrinkles. Oh my God.
Eyes, the same eyes.
Hey, Andreas, to make you come up with the title of the episode first, right, before we start the episode?
I did, yeah.
Because I was just thinking that a great title would be "Let's Talk About Sex," but like SECTS,
Oh, that's gonna be good. Let's do that next time.
If we're gonna go down that route, we have to talk about the Oneida. What do you call them anymore?
Uranta? Is that
Oneida? Like the silverware company.
Oh, I don't know
what or something. What is Oneida? They're social. No.
So yeah, Oneida was a community that was quasi-Christian, but they were very much like I guess People's Temple and some of the other ones where they do arranged marriages within the community where everyone like votes, and they basically like this little weird eugenic system where they're like, I like this lady because she's good at this thing and that guy's good at that thing. They should get together and have kids, and then those kids will benefit our community as a whole. So it was much less about you finding your mate and the community telling you, here's
so this is
how to
not.
develop it.
This is just Match.com. This is nothing new. Which is also Mormon, right? So,
But
interesting.
they also happen to make really good silverware for a very long time. So almost everyone in America has used Oneida silverware at some point. You probably have some in your kitchen right now if you turn it over and look at the back.
You know what that reminds me? Have you seen that movie Go? Doug Lyman directed the Raver movie.
Sure, yeah.
You know that how part of that movie they, the police that the police he arrested the 2 movie stars, right? And they're at the end of the the investigation, they took the actor to the house, right? And they were selling these silverware and plates.
That silverware.
The Confederate silverware.
They weren't made by any big corporation or anything. They were all like mimicking it. They were like
Vector is probably like out of like some secret cult from Damascus. That's why those knives can slice through cans, and like they just don't want you to know. Like that's like certain layers of marketing before you find out the secrets behind Vector.
Dude, I'm tripping out right now a little bit because my great grandfather was on the East Coast with a silverware company where people were paying they're paying off their silverware on like installments that they had gotten, and he decided at a certain point, I don't know the circumstances of his life or whatever was going on, but he decided to go door to door and tell everyone that was paying off their silverware that they could just pay it off for a lesser amount if they did it right now. And awesome. He told them that the company was going under when it wasn't. And then he collected all of that money, and then he took his family to New Zealand, where I still have family in New Zealand, but I don't know the name difference, even though my mom lived with them for like a long time.
So your family might be beefing with the Oneida community to this day.
Maybe. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it as like New York. I'm like 1800s.
Probably should have told that story.
They call themselves
just full disclosure all the way. I got
like the Moonies, though. They'll probably pick you up and take you back from New Zealand.
Have you guys ever investigated the background of the Cutco company?
Cutco.
Have you ever worked for Cutco?
That's kind of what I meant when I said Vector.
I went to their interview.
When I said Vector Knives, major enemy, I think their mortal enemy is Cutco. Cutco versus Vector, right?
But I signed up because in San Francisco, I couldn't find a job my first summer of college. So I was wandering around looking for jobs. And then I
Vector owns Cutco.
Okay. Yeah, but that thing is like seriously like a pyramid cult,
That's what I was trying to say. I feel like Cutco, they secretly Vector goes back to ancient Damascus, and they probably have like at the higher levels. At the higher levels, you find out why those blades are like that, but you can't unless you sell like 1 million knives.
Is it really like Damascus steel? I mean, is that?
I mean, there's something to it.
Samurai sword with that stuff. It's like
my buddy made a movie about this once, Sharp, and he was he needed to get some money, so he started working for Vector, selling Cutco knives, and it's like a movie about working for the knife marketing company.
Oh, that's hilarious. I would love to watch that.
But I don't think it goes deep enough into like the secret society of Cutco, because I'm pretty sure
they like the evolution of Ginsu. Is that what happened? Remember Ginsu knives? You could just cut a quarter in half and shit.
Well, that was part of my demonstration. I bring the knife kit. I bought the prerequisites that you gotta buy the knives. You have to buy the $100.
Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
$400 now.
The first minute. And then I have to cut the circumference. I have to cut around the penny and then just get the heck out of my neighbor. He's like, look. It just cuts like butter. And
now you're going to jail for defacing currency.
The other thing, I'm gonna slaughter his family. Just get out of here. Sharpen his knives.
This is probably like a hard segue, but I didn't want to do the Megan Fox LGBT thing without like a sandwich break, So like colossal asteroid the size of 99 narwhals, proving that Americans will do anything to use them. Anything but the metric system will fly past Earth Thursday. I've also seen this as 88 whales. I'm not kidding. Like they just won't. They can't.
But I mean, whales are different sizes. Narwhals are actually like relatively consistent.
Right. This is a standard unit of metric.
Like what kind of whales?
In America.
Is it 99 sperm whales or
is it standard whale or is it continental whale?
There's definitely like a whale scene going on. Do you notice that? It's like not just the killer whales that are like attacking the ships. And then now we're talking about, Douglas Adams, the whale falling from the sky, and
yeah, I mean orcas.
Avatar was
no one gets how scary orcas are. I know we have bigger fish to fry, pardon me, but like orcas are really, I think, more dangerous than people realize. I think
Didn't was there a story recently? They're eating like yachts. They're like going after.
Yeah, they know how to smash it open. I mean, especially the wooden ones.
You're kind of
but it's
selling
just
me
really
on
weird.
orcas right now.
I
Yeah,
know,
orcas are
right?
great.
I'm just like,
Saw
wow,
that
like
they
those
were
old
actually evolved
paintings
from
of fucking
something-
whales
they
taking
evolved
out.
from
This would be so much
land
cooler
creature.
too than a Jaws movie if it was just like a whole
there is
bunch of people
Oh,
on
that
yachts
exists.
getting attacked by. Okay,
It's called
Well,
Orca.
Yeah, Orca is
Oh,
a
yeah,
great
that's the
1977. I love Orca. I think Orca is
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
than Jaws. Actually, I think it's pretty good.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, there's
but
Tentacles
sneaker,
also,
yeah,
also
but-
from 1977. Tentacles, right?
Yeah, that's the one directed by I think I did The Visitor.
Right, and exactly.
hear me out.
I haven't seen Tentacles. Oh, Shelley
It's pretty
Winters and
funny.
Tentacles.
Yeah, John Huston, Shelley Winters.
Oh my God, this just took a turn. Let's talk about Tentacles for a second.
I forgot about this because isn't it like
we got to change the subject? No, what I'm trying to bring out about the whales is that I have a feeling that it's like the hitchhiker of the galaxy. There's like a warning with all these whales. The dolphins. Thank you
Right.
for all the fish.
They're on the
Right,
way
that
out.
stuff. But it feels like the war's about to end. So
What's that? So
these whales are ready to take us out.
Echo, blue whale, and Echo the dolphin. What happens is there's a whale that shows up
Very good.
every 500 years, right? And so he knows about time travel, and he knows that there's a storm coming. So he tells Echo the dolphin that they need to go down to the ruins of Atlantis to get the time travel machine so they can stop the Vortex Queen. Right. So I always feel like there's something important about the whale. Plus, the whale uses echolocation to help Echo use echolocation. So they're working together, which is, there's definitely and that's like, okay, this whole game is based on the MK Ultra and Lilly books and like the Lilly
John
research.
C. Lilly.
Yeah, all of the stuff that led to this is actual information. Like the military had been using whales for echolocation. And we just were talking about whale, like AI understanding whales. So I can only imagine what the next year is going to be like.
But speaking of the MK Ultra, we talked about already. The beluga, right? The beluga now they're warning. In Norway, don't get close to it because it's a Russian spy and the war's about to start. I don't know. The beluga whale is another story. It's
Of course, also the whale. Aronofsky's The Whale was just in the. In the constant, the movie with Brendan Fraser, The Whale.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
I still haven't seen it, but
yeah, I liked it actually. I didn't. The first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know, but then David talked me into it, so now I like The Whale.
Yeah,
Is it related
I
to
went
Moby
off on it
Dick?
before.
Like,
I don't need to do it again. But yeah,
is it like? Does it play on Moby Dick? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it's about a girl's it's superficially it's about a girl's book report on Moby Dick. So
it's actually
amazing.
it's the story of the prodigal son, and so the kid. Did you watch it, Alex?
No, not yet.
You know what? I've talked about it before. I went the fuck off on it, but I'd love to go off on it again. But I don't think this is a time and place if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil it for you. I'd say we've discussed Aronofsky before when you were visiting. I like to revisit that. Eddie, you look like you got something on the tip of your tongue. At some point here, Alex, in this conversation, I want to talk to you about Tentacles and the Visitor. I have a couple things, but
okay.
Hey,
We'll get back
just my last thing about the whales. This happened. I don't know if I brought it up in the show. This was before I got on the show. But remember that Norwal? Since you guys were talking about Norwal whales, remember that terror incident on London Bridge? There's like this crazy Arab guy like slashing everybody, and then this one guy, I think he was a soldier or something. He went inside. He went to the what is that? The museum or there's an official building. He ran in there and grabbed the Norwal,
really
the unicorn, right? He grabbed it and stabbed the guy with it.
Wow,
it was like this is crazy. It was like the whole thing was like surreal, like a ritual.
Yeah.
That was a real king kill ritual, and then just no one gave it credit because it wasn't someone famous enough.
That's like a ballad waiting to happen. That's Beowulf level. I haven't been jealous in a while, but I mean, wow, God, the few things I haven't done in my life. What do you get for the guy who hasn't done anything? I think a narwhal horned at heart.
I actually saw the Norwal tusk because it was at the Getty Museum. That the monster exhibit that I showed you. It
was sparkly?
Yeah. So I don't know. There's something really weird going on.
I know this happened a few days ago, but Ted Kaczynski's dead.
They say
math professor.
He hanged himself.
He hanged himself. So what did he know, or was he just tired of it? Or I mean, because obviously he's like a victim of the government giving him mind control drugs. And all these
he had a whole set of supposedly had a whole set of physical impairments that were like life threatening. So he had cancer and along with a bunch of shit. And so my guess is he was just fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And knowing his time was limited anyway. But that's just I don't think you have to take him out at this point. I think he's dispersed his. I can go right now online and just read his manifesto. I can read his story, the Ship of Fools. It's all available. So I don't know.
You know what? Because Elon Musk made a tweet about him, right, saying that he might be right, and he made that tweet just before he died. Let me look it up.
I mean, so do you think that his death, like maybe he's thinking he gets one shot, to get more attention again, and this is his last shot to have people pay attention to him. And right now do you think it's an important moment for people to remember what he said? Do you think there's something there?
Maybe,
probably, yeah.
How much access to news did he have knowing that freaking Bobby Boussalet could produce an album from prison, apparently, although he was supposedly denied parole over that. I don't know what prison's like for a lot of people now. It's like I'm visualizing like Bronson in there and just like this, like you got nothing, you got your bed and that's it, but I don't know.
Probably depends on which prison. Some of them are like country clubs,
right? Wait. Oh yeah, I got it. Here, I found the tweak. Tweak. Hold on one second. I'm gonna drop it to you. Go ahead. Yeah, it's in the mailbox. So Elon Musk made this June 10th. That is the day that he killed himself, right? But you see it? Yeah, he might not be wrong. So it's.
He's responding to that he died though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did die already. Okay.
I know it's like when Eminem was battling with Machine Gun Kelly, and then you find out that the rebuttal was actually recorded before the other one. You're like, wait a minute here, this is some WWF shit.
What's going on with Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox? I guess we might as well bring it up. I mean, you saw what's going on. So Robbie Starbuck, who's a friend of mine, posted this picture a while ago saying, Megan Fox and her 3 boys, so brave. These are Megan Fox's sons. We used to live in the same gated community, and our kids played at the park. I saw 2 of them have a full-on breakdown, saying they were forced by their mom to wear girls' clothes as their nanny tried to console them. It's pure child abuse. Pray for them. He wouldn't say this like if it wasn't true, just knowing Robbie. And also, he's famous enough that to say something that wasn't true would end up being like instantaneously, destroyed, canceled, erased, and sued for anything he has. He's got a family, and he wouldn't.
Was that kid forced to wear the Icarus shirt, or?
It's a good question.
Their own choice.
It's pretty based, and I like the Led Zeppelin thing too. I don't know. It could be worse. I mean, they're definitely kind of dudeish in their clothes choice still. Though. I still want to wear shorts.
I have a strange personal sync with Megan Fox because I actually worked with Shia LaBeouf on his personal film, and I remember that time when he broke up with her, right, with Megan Fox. He was like having some weird like stomach condition. He was like puking. Yeah. I just feel like I feel like he was traumatized by something. He must have seen something so scary. Because that was also the same time Megan Fox was making the other sync was with Jason Reitman when I worked with him on Juno. After the next film was Jennifer's Body that she was in,
where she's like
that's a really
succubus movie, where she's like
for its release date as well. It fits right into this thing with Kubrick and The Shining.
What's the deal with the release date of Jennifer's Body?
Well, it's this whole thing. We kind of explained it in the first YouTube video or first or second on Sean's page with me on it. Where
Jennifer's Body. Yeah.
Jennifer's Body. Well, so in The Shining, you see the movie Summer of 42 on the TV. Mm-hmm. And the footage in that movie stars an actress, Jennifer O'Neill.
Yeah.
So, and then 237 days later, Jennifer O'Neill shows up again in Scanners, which has 237 on the poster.
Yeah.
And is about that. It's like this huge, tight little thing. But so the focus of these 2 things is, okay, Jennifer's Body, because you're seeing her on TV and you're seeing her in Scanners. Then I found this movie, and I just went from The Shining to the release of Jennifer's Body, and it's 1,503 weeks, which is 153, and it's like a really powerful interval. It's like how old I was when my dad died, and so it's just like hooked in there, like Jennifer's body. Like what the fuck? What, like that's the mystery. Like, and what that movie is about is like basically possession. It's like her body is possessed.
So you've got Panic at the Disco's, like the band, right? And so they're gonna like gangbang her in a van because she's a groupie for their concert. You think, but what they really are doing is they're taking her to drop her off in a portal to be sacrificed, and then she gets spewed out of the portal, and then she has to go around date raping all these virgin boys. Which is brilliant. I think it's a brilliant movie, actually. And then again, like the band becomes more and more famous. The song, the #1 single, becomes bigger and more top as the more and more virgins are desecrated, and the accumulation of desecration empowers Jennifer's body.
So somebody just brought it up, and I forgot about it. Somebody brought it up in the chat saying, Machine Gun Kelly and her, they had a vial. They were sharing. They have each other's blood, basically.
Yeah, the Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie thing.
They do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so the funny
maybe
thing,
this role, like,
she said
reality in some weird way.
She said in this movie, or in this recent rebuttal to Robbie, she's like, well, rather the media is like, well, Megan Fox makes a witch joke, right? But what she said was like that she's threatening to curse him, right? And she's she's performing magic against the person. And I find this interesting because you cannot like challenge someone to a duel, right? Like more guns I think misfire than spells, probably, or curses. I don't know. It seems like this is a more dangerous thing, but you can't say that, like it's a joke. Haha, she's cursing somebody.
But isn't saying that you're gonna do it basically the like adjacent to doing it? I mean, if I say I'm gonna shoot somebody, that has far less of a real implication of it happening than me saying I'm going to curse someone. Because what's the difference saying I'm going to curse you or I curse you? Like it's just a word difference.
Right, and you can do it from the comfort of your own room too. You can just do a pentagram on the floor, do the whole thing.
That's what I'm going to say. It's like there's a difference between saying you're going to do the third rite and doing the third rite. There's probably actual stuff involved beyond just intention that she's doing, which it probably takes a little bit of work. It's probably worth like $100 an hour to do a curse, I would imagine.
Can you just get it on Fiverr though?
I think so, and that's the thing. There's been these circumstances where witches say, "Hey, I'm going to put out this anti-Trump curse," and ha ha ha. But then a bunch of people will do the curse, and then there's a few people. I mean, of course, there's like 88% of them are just like Midwestern liberal, Rust Belt University blue hairs that are trying to be progressive because their parents were against them. But the rest of them, like we've got some pretty serious dog sacrificing, black magic, hate-filled people that exist in the world. I mean, the same way that you say, I think that someone should, right? Like they've said, if you provoke fire in a theater, right? But are you provoking witchcraft in a theater? And there's definitely like evil people.
Well, when you talk about witchcraft, it gets complicated because, like, are you talking about voodoo? Or are you talking about like ritual? And like everything in life. This is what Crowley argued, at least, is like you're doing ritual all the time. You're just doing it unconsciously or consciously. So he's like, if you're this is what's gonna be happening. You can either kind of like align yourself with the ritual that exists in nature, which is like what we see all through anthropology and the Golden Bough and all of that, is this kind of like alignment thing. Or are you gonna like just be like, I don't believe in ritual, and then like watch you just doing poor ritual, like you're doing it anyway, you're brushing your teeth,
make your own ritual, or you become part of someone else's ritual.
Right, kind of, exactly
right.
But there are different ideas around what constitutes. So if you're talking about like black magic, you're talking about witchcraft, like that's intent to hurt. It's the idea that like when you get pissed off at somebody and you tense up in your body, like is that actually doing anything for that person you're pissed off about, or are you just tensing up your body? And if so, if they wanted you to be hurt themselves, aren't you kind of just helping to facilitate that desire of theirs by contracting your body in anger? You know what I mean? Like it's not healthy. It's not a healthy thing to be.
Well,
maybe angry,
though, because as you clench up and you raise the amount of adrenaline, your skin also it constricts the blood vessels closer to your skin. So if you were to get into a fight, say if you were like fighting a bear or like a cat or something, you will bleed less. So yeah, there is some advantage.
There's a
to
function.
it,
There's a place.
Yeah.
Kinds of things that
exactly.
Thomas is
Isn't everything
preparing
like that? I mean, come on, where it's like there's the actual need application for this thing. Like, why do we have this thing like that we call fear or whatever? Like, why do we have fear? Like, we don't necessarily have to have fear, but we have fear as like it's an instinctual thing, so that when there's a fucking predator, you know to get away from it. You know, like run or attack or whatever you need to do, fight or flight. Like it has this function, but we have fight or flight over things that don't even really like aren't real threats.
And
so you're
voodoo
not
is
actually
different
threatened.
because voodoo, you're making it happen yourself. So you're feeding into something that someone's put out for you. So I feel like they don't feel as bad about it. Like, well, you
Right.
believed it. You did this to yourself. Whereas, actual work, an atonement magic that's done in order to hurt people. I mean,
what do you got? How much do you guys believe in the karmic reparations?
Pretty much. I'm pretty sure that this is kind of.
I think the Freemasons know how to do it. I think they, with the. I think that's the purpose of the chamber of reflection. Don't you think? I think they really just like try to face the.
Well, what do we mean by karma? Like, because you got to qualify the term of karma. Because like karma, usually for people, they're just like, oh, you do good things come back to you. Oh, you're an asshole, like bad things happen back. It's just like that idea. But I was told by a monk at Zen Abbey that karma is like basically like it's in the moment in the first place. So in other words, like if you have certain sets of assumptions that you're relating to the world through the lens of, then those assumptions themselves like create their own experience. So like if you're in hell as a result of you assuming all these things about what you are in relationship to others, like it's not just like the stealing. Like if you stole out of necessity, that's one thing. If you stole out of like what you know what I mean? Like it's not just the action, it's deeper than that. It's like in this moment, every set of assumptions that formulates your perception of the world is itself the karma. So they're like karma's like now before. So like
it's the same way like when you're casting spells and then cursing somebody, you're making intent, right? Your intent is to hurt.
Well, there's also, I think atonement is like the root of it all. So like if you steal a candy bar, you have to give it back to atone. You can't just say, I'm sorry I took your candy bar. And if you don't have the candy bar to give back because you ate it, you not only have to purchase the candy bar for the cost of the shelving, and it's worth more than the candy bar itself, right? There's a lot that goes into it. There might be fines because you have the inconvenience of not purchasing it properly, whatever it is. So karma comes with like, there's a huge circumstance, and even your presuppositions are karmatic. Like karmic, you're getting there because the universe allowed it to happen. You're existing because other choices led up to you. And this is like, you're not responsible for the sins of the father, but at the same time, if your father loses his house, you might be homeless, So there are things about karma which are just the universe is doing these choices which are leading to a place. And if you can see where those choices were made before you and what kind of choices are going to affect the future, then you can make what we think of as better choices or more advantageous choices.
I gotta qualify just that I'm talking about like a Zen definition of karma for a particular school that I meditated at for like 3 weeks at a time in Shasta, but but that's their own take on the thing. But somebody mentioned dharma. Dharma is when you're actually going along with your nature. So like the dharma of fire is to be hot, like, so if you're relating to karma as doing, I would say dharma is more about doing, because dharma is really like how you apply your nature in the world, but if you're talking about like karma yoga or something, that's obviously doing. That's doing without the lust of result, that that yields something that's of more value than if you were just doing it from a place of acquisition. It's also the issue with knowledge. It's the issue with sex, is like when you're relating to things through just like what you have to gain and nothing else, and your focus is entirely on some idea about yourself and not even your true self, then that's going to have karmic repercussions.
Karma is really just supposed to be the reciprocal energy, how you affect the chain reaction, and not just a butterfly effect of what you do, but that send the shockwave around you. Those are things you do that you didn't think much of, that secretly hurt like millions of people out there. But when the things you say on a podcast, they just like they're really traumatized like millions of listeners. But I think I don't know. well, I keep going back to Groundhog Day. I think that's like the movie that really kind of like portrays the best example of intention and karma, where you keep coming back. You keep going to waking up 6 o'clock, smashing the alarm clock, and he's like, "Why can't I get out of this damn game?" Because
Right.
because he just got this evil intent. He wants to get into the pants of his producer.
Right. Well, it's the tarot tableau through that whole movie, right? So he moves through the 22 arcana over and over and over again. And that's in the original script, by the way. That was something Alan Green discovered. And also, same thing's true for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Both those movies are moving. They use the tarot arcana as the 22 arcana as a template for the entire like plot line. So he's having these interactions with these characters. Each one involves its own lessons. But yeah, so it's like it makes sense as a writer that you're looking for what is the archetypal, what is something that's very archetypal that tells a story that I can use. Well, the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell pointed out, is a really good resource for that.
Well, the original script was written by Harold Ramis, right? That was his idea. Yeah. And I'm trying to investigate his background too. He's very interesting.
What did you say earlier? You're talking about the Masons and karma, that they have a ritual. Which ritual were you saying?
Well, no, I was talking about their basic the chamber of reflection. How they set up the skull and the candles, right? And
You're
and
supposed
also
to
the book.
stare into the
the vitriol,
The hat of reflection.
And
Stick your head in, and
if you look at the setup too, that's a tree right there.
So what is and this is supposed to, you think this is clearing of karma though, that this is washing sins away or something?
Well, what do you think, Thomas? I think you may be able to explain this a little better. What do you think?
I don't know how much I could explain of it because it's part of an actual ritual.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
Well,
damn Freemasons.
I don't know. I can't really
secrets.
for sure say this is where they because for the longest time I've been hearing is that they know the secrets of how to.
The exoteric version is to remind you of your immortality and that we're all the same in death, I guess, which in my mind is an interesting connection to Skull and Bones, because Skull and Bones have a very similar, and I can't remember exactly how it translates, but it's got like they've got this painting at Skull and Bones with like 5 different skulls, and it says like king, prince, pauper, priest, like we're all the same in death, and it's this concept that no matter how high you achieve your status in life, that you're basically rendered to the same level in death. Although I do think that's the exoteric explanation, not the esoteric one.
Right. Let me. I'll read a bit about the ritual. So, according to Wikipedia, in the Freemason, the chamber of reflection, also called the room of reflection, reflection cabinet, or meditation cabinet, is the place where the part of the initiation ritual process takes place, used to test isolation, during which the recipient is invited to perform some introspection. This is facilitated by the presence of symbolic objects and evocative sentences, which may differ slightly depending on the rites. Isolation is an age-old practice in initiation rituals. For example, Masonic tribes send the young recipient into seclusion in the forest to confront the Conquerong, which is not a link I can click on. The reflective practice is seen by some historians as a legacy of alchemical tradition and esoteric treatises. Do you know what Conquerong is?
I have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know. Initiatory rite practiced in Senegal and Gambia. Okay. Look into that. The reflective practice is seen by some historians as a legacy of alchemical traditions and esoteric treatises, further supported by the fact that the Conquerong is the only place where the young person can learn the art of initiation. The influence would have given birth in 1750 to the ritual alchemique secret de grade de France Mason académicien, in English, secret alchemical ritual of the grade of true Freemason academician, created by Antoine Joseph Pernetti of the Lodge of Lume of Avignon. The description: well-known Freemason Albert Mackay in 1873, Mackay's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry describes the chamber of reflection as a small room adjoining the lodge in which, preparatory to initiation, the candidate is enclosed for the purpose of indulging in those serious meditations, which its somber appearance and gloomy emblems with which it's furnished are calculated to produce. Function: the candle is placed at a time of reflection to meditate. Symbolism: the mirror, introspection, hourglass, symbolizing time. Scythe, reaper and death. Rooster, identified with the sun in mythologies of India and the Native American pueblos of tribes. Zoroastrian beliefs, it is a symbol of protection of good from evil. Ancient beliefs report that the evil spirits active at night were driven away by the crowing of the rooster before dawn. I think the rooster is the dragon, because I've seen some pretty interesting pictures of giant roosters that and pictures of fighting dragons that look like roosters.
The red dragon was a symbol associated with Virgo, and it related to the digestive system as a dragon to conquer or to tame and direct.
Dude, can you imagine this? This would freak you out. I'm just saying, like a giant rooster. All of a sudden, you're like, that not intelligent animal. It's scarier because of that.
There's a horror film about a giant rooster that attacks people. It's like total what are those 3000? What's that show where people watch
theater?
Yeah, thank you.
Bloodfest about a giant rooster. All right. I'm going to give it a I
think that's a different one, but yeah, there's probably more than one giant rooster attack movie.
How could there only be one giant rooster?
This has nothing to do with Abraxas, right?
Probably does. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. There we go. Let's go to Abraxas.
Well, it's also Hermes. Yeah, so you have the
serpents going on with the ritual. Bread associated with wheat, life, water, element without life not possible. Salt, sulfur, mercury, goldsmiths, alchemy. The candle, reflection, light, knowledge of oneself. Dark room, the lit light from the candle will gradually take up more and more space in contrast to the prevailing darkness.
This is vitriol is written, if I recall correctly, on the 14th arcana in the Thoth deck of art, what was temperance. It says that across the top, I believe, for the stone. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's cool. I mean, so also just in terms of Abraxas, what are your thoughts on Abraxas?
Well, that's not how I perceive Abraxas, but well, isn't this the king of the
I'm going to start my own coffee shop, and I think you all know what it's going to be called.
Charles Manson talked a lot about it as well.
The Great Archon is what it's saying. That's interesting.
Yeah, the king of the archons. So, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it other than.
Well, Abraxas is the star of the Chosen One, and he kind of represents like this ultimate Gnostic, control of the universe. He'd almost be like Saturn, in the concept of like creating reality, dictating what the material world and what illusions kind of pop up.
I feel like I remember from Manly P. Hall that the whole thing with Abraxas was directly connected to Hermes, but I'm not seeing that here at what we're looking at. So I'm not jumping on it. I was like, I thought that there was that whole connection of maybe it's just the rooster was associated with Hermes, and so it's like one aspect of Abraxas. I forget.
Okay, so if you go back and look at the chain of reflection, what do you call it? That's not a tracing board. What is that thing?
Just really quickly, Western tradition of occultism, Hellenistic magic, alchemy, one of the hands from the Jewish mysticism order. The principal Hellenistic source is Corpus Hermeticum, the text associated with Hermes Trismegistus. So it's from Hermes Trismegistus, Corpus Hermeticum, that we find Abraxas.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Eddie, what are you saying?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, looking at the what do you call the vitriol, the graph? I don't know if that's a tracing board with the rooster on top, right? That is pretty much set up like the tree of life, right? I mean, if you look at, well, if you just go back to the Chain of Reflection wiki, you see it.
Right.
But go back to
that's from Secret Teachings of All Ages, right? Did it originate there?
That one is that one's by Knapp.
Yeah. So this one, I mean, look at it. And so like Thomas is saying, the Abraxas is basically equivalent to Saturn, right? And he's sitting at. Well, I'm just trying to look at this if this is coordinating with the Tree of Life at all.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, not to like ruin the chill of the LDS after we've been so polite to them, but also just looking at their secret symbols on their undergarments, right? which have this these symbols. Kind of, I don't know. It reminds me in a way. I mean, it's loose interpretation.
No way. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say too much, but way more than in a way. Like the especially that little.
I know you want to say too much. That's the problem.
I don't want to.
This just became a fun show.
If you yeah, it's this one is like beyond freaking obvious, man.
Well, I wonder what happens if I just typed in Freemasonry. Is that gonna help? I don't know. I mean, is that what do you guys think? What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton, yeah, that could be. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it necessarily is as simple as this either. It's not just that it's like a broken up compass. That it's not just, hey, look, we still like Freemasonry secretly. I think it's about what the symbol represents. So
you guys all remember what the square and compass represent, right? Do we got this?
This better be a joke. What do you say?
Yeah, no, well, is it a joke? I mean, it's like a biblical joke or a Kabbalistic joke, but the square and compass, the points of the compass, you're looking at these points, that the G is Gimel, the compass is Chokhmah, Bina, Keter, the square is Gevurah, Chesed, Tiferet. And so it's the merging of the upper and lower worlds of the Kabbalistic tree with the Gimel connecting from Keter to Tiferet, which is what I was writing about on Twitter today that I was going off on. I was like, I basically, on Twitter, I shared the ultimate meaning of the Masonic G to the best of my knowledge and ability as concisely as possible. So that was like kind of like my task this morning. I was like, because I was going off about it last night, and I was like, you know what? I just want to, even just for myself, to like just like have this kind of the basics around this just laid out, and as simply as I could. You know,
well, you pointed out in there about 77 and Oz, just kind of offhandedly, and that kind of related to the tweets I made about Donald Trump, which kind of blew my own mind. The other people would be interested about.
Dude, you don't even know.
Further 777.
777 popped up this morning. Do you know what happened? That Europe, NATO is about to plan on the war with Russia officially July 11th. So now you got 711 and 77.
Totally. Fuck. Alex, I want to look at what you shared just recently about the 77s with Trump, because like really I saw that and I was like
Beavis and Butthead, where Beavis says that 7-Eleven was an inside job, right?
I did see that. I did.
Sorry.
Interesting. I did not know that. But
yeah, it is. Look into it.
But
77. He turned 77 today, right? No. Tomorrow.
Right. So Alex, what's the go to Alex's Twitter, because what the hell? So like, because I saw this and then immediately I was like, I remember before he was elected, we were saying the day that he has his first day in office,
there it is,
will be 70.
Trump charged today.
Yeah, 37 counts. Nah.
Yeah, he was charged with 37 counts, 3 times 7, 77. Yeah, like Dave was saying, and lots of people figured this out, that Trump was 70 years, 7 months, 7 days old the day he was inaugurated.
Right. That was the major reason I think David finally was like, okay, well, there's something here.
But then, like, I think less well known is that later that year, on July 7th, 7717 was the day that Trump and Putin met for the first time in public. They had a summit, and on that day, 7717, Putin was exactly 777 months old. And so, and then that was also the day Spider-Man Homecoming came out, which Tom Stanley Holland is Spider-Man, and he was 77,707 days old on 7717.
Hey, Alex, I saw another one saying
and he's from Wales. Sorry.
Okay, hold on. But Trump is turning. He's turning 77 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
June 14th is 7 days away from summer solstice.
Yeah. Yes. If you go back to my Twitter, I got
the whale thing was a lot for me. I'm gonna just breathe. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you get out of that picture and then go to like the next tweet, that one there at the bottom. This is the one that blew my mind. Was that because so summer solstice, he'll be 77 years, 7 days old. And the day he was indicted was on March 30th, and that was 77 days before his 77th birthday. But then the other thing here is that Israel is going to turn 77 in 2025, and the day that Israel turns 77 will be the 777th day after Trump was indicted.
That's
So-
when Antichrist shows up.
Also, 77 days before his 77th birthday. You're blowing my mind,
It's-
man. This is good.
Yeah, I mean,
What the
like I
hell?
said, blew my own mind, and lots of people kind of, have picked up on this Trump. I don't know if you noticed, but like, there's a whole cottage industry of people like talking about Trump and numerology, and Trump is a time traveler,
And
and
77.
all this stuff.
strength,
77,
this is
Oz, Wizard of
interesting.
Oz. It just goes
Hey,
deeply.
his
49.
mom. Listen,
Muhammad.
Trump's his mother. Do you know what her mother's last name is?
Christ, Elizabeth
7.
Christ Trump.
No, it's
That's her middle name, I guess. Sorry.
It's McLeod. It's the Highlander, McLeod. He
Ooh.
cannot die.
Oh, interesting.
I thought that was interesting too that Mar-a-Lago was built for $7 million in 1927 and then purchased by Trump for $7 million in 1985.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so the other thing was that there was a Spider-Man movie in theaters on 7/7/17, and now with all this going on, there is another Spider-Man movie in theaters, just to complete the whole thing.
Hey, Alex, do you remember what movies came out on 7/7? What movie, only one, came out on 7/7/1977, and what album came out on 7/7/1977?
Spy Who Loved Me came out on
That's
that
right.
day. But
Spy
I
Who
don't know
Loved
the
Me,
album.
the
Was it ABBA?
I just saw that Spy Who Loved
Six,
Me
The
is
Grand
being
Illusion.
Oh wait,
Just yesterday, I was on television, like help my dad, and it was like what to watch, and the biggest thing it was like Spy Who Loved Me was the movie they're recommending right now.
The Spy Who Loves Me featured, because I was that's just a weird thing because I was
Which
reading
has a
about,
Kubrick connection too.
I was reading about Ringo this morning, and somebody made a comment about Ringo saying he's the most hated Beatles. I said, well, but he's married to the Spy Who Loved Me.
He's definitely not the most hated Beatle. He's
Who
just the
doesn't love
least
Ringo?
of the good looking Beatles or
He's
whatever.
the most loved.
Yeah, I think Pete Best is the most hated Beatle, right? Isn't that because they left him out of the band?
Jeez, that's rough for him.
Poor
Can't
guy.
get any
Not
worse.
even a real Beatle, and he's still the most hated. But yeah,
What about the cover your eyes, Bella Ramsey on Vogue?
Well,
Isn't this adorable, right?
Yeah, it's just great. She was talking about how she still can't decide whether she's a man or woman, so just let her sit on it.
I find it interesting, like the they pronoun, because of the idea of like I'm not a man or a woman. I'm an entire like legion of demons in a body. You know what I mean?
being John Malkovich.
I'm they right now. I'm like all of them. Like that used to get you like stoned to death. And now we're just for it, which is interesting.
You know what's the funniest thing today happened is that Andrew Tate, right? He had an interview with what's his name, the BPD podcast, and then he, on the podcast he said, "Oh, I'm a woman. I designated my that's my pronoun." And those guys just like froze for a second.
I know. If you said my pronoun was legion, like wouldn't that be kind of the same thing? I'm gonna do that. I don't know.
Do you know my pronouns, Andreas?
What are your pronouns?
My pronouns are I and me. So when you address me, I'd prefer that you refer to me in the first person.
All right, as long as I can do the same thing when I refer to
It's more common than you
when I
think.
refer to
My
me.
pronoun.
When I refer to me, I will definitely make sure, or else. All right, I like it.
It's a sticks and stones kind of working of it.
So,
Yeah, I
the
feel
Spy
like
Who
it's
Loved Me,
fun.
you were gonna. Did you have something more to say about that, David? And the
I got a
sticks?
million things to say about
do
that,
too.
but I'm sure you do too. But yeah,
The
no,
best
it's
James Bond, of course, is Roger.
no,
Moore.
it's huge because you can see as soon as Crowley's
Who's the
choreography and lighting jumps in is because all of a sudden you have that 3-point perspective.
You mean
of that.
Kubrick? You were saying?
Yeah, or did I say Kubrick? What am I saying?
You said
I'm-
Crowley. But
Crowley, yeah, no.
Kubrick
I'll
came
call
in
you know
and
what it was? I was
lit
thinking
the
about the
set.
Lusitania. I did a weird thing, and also
yeah,
it's
Gio Paradisi, he did. This is important. Sorry.
Oh,
this
tentacle.
is important. This is what I wanted to get to with you, Alex, because this is crazy. So you said, "Oh, the same guy did Tentacles." Well, not the director. So this director, as far as I know, unless there's something I'm missing there, but like there's no other movie that this director did that's like The Visitor. I'm gonna, just because of the nature of like this conversation, like I'm just gonna jump the gun, and like normally I would go through a whole thing of like why I believe this, but I'm just gonna say what I believe. I believe that fucking Orson Welles had a big part in The Visitor. Maybe we discussed this while you were visiting.
I don't think so.
Okay, so you know The Other Side of the Wind with John
Yeah.
Huston?
Yeah.
You know,
If you
look
watch
at the
one of the videos David did with us with the visitors cover talks a bit about this. If you need a deeper look, also, but yeah, keep going.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, and it's funny because with those interviews, like I've come a long way since then. So I have other ideas than I communicated at the time. But basically, Orson Welles made a deal with a Saudi prince for The Other Side of the Wind, with the same actor wearing the same outfit for some reason
and then
as the
tentacles
visitor.
too.
Right, and in tentacles
Houston was
as well.
wearing the
And
same shit.
right, so then you have people that were involved in the visitor working on the tentacles. But my theory is that money that was supposed to just go to The Other Side of the Wind also went to these other films, and that he just he went on one. And I'm really jumping the gun. I have a lot. This is a huge part of Sorry Cassandra. I speculate that the fire that happened at the MGM Grand that happened the same day and year as the release of the visitor was actually like a fuck you from the Saudi royalty to over what Orson Welles did, and that using the MGM Grand was like a symbolic fucking statement to like Hollywood. And like that, I know I'm doing a thing where I'm like skipping all of the syntax, but we're on a podcast, and that's a huge giant topic that I like to discuss with you in depth at some point. Like even if we want to do something separately or something, because it's like a big rabbit hole. But like it has to do with Hal Craig and Trumbo and all that stuff. So it's like, you have people really rocking the boat with certain films, and that's when you get into like how Polanski ties in with Kubrick in certain kinds of ways. Rabbis are giving talks on both of those people incorporating Kabbalah into their films.
I guess you should say that the Visitor released in Italy first, but its American release was in November 1980, and it was the same day as this big MGM Grand fire in Paradise, Nevada, and it's directed by this Italian guy who took the name Michael J. Paradise. That's at least the given name. Like you're saying that you think Orson Welles secretly directed this film?
I'm not saying he directed it. I'm saying similar to Trumbo and Hal Craig, I think he was a contributor. So I think he had his hands in it. And if you look at that guy's other films that you were looking at that I put in the private chat, that guy didn't do anything else like The Visitor. Okay, you have the team that's working on it, people but just the financing, like to get the go ahead for what that is. Shelley Winters, John Huston, what is going on with that movie? He did like some shitty like spaghetti factory movie, like comedy thing. It's like these Italian films that are nothing like The Visitor at all.
Beyond the Door, I think, was his breakout, kind of, which was like a ripoff of The Exorcist, basically a straight ripoff. He was just kind of like a ripoff artist, but made these other movies that are interesting.
Paredes, is this not related to Johnny Depp's ex-wife, Vanessa Paredes? It's the same last name, right?
Paradisi.
Just an extra.
But
John Huston, I don't know his role in that. It's all very The Other Side of the Wind. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I just feel there's a Hollywood cult that's going on, and I feel like John Huston's was at the top of it for a while.
Because he directed The Misfits, Marilyn Monroe's last film that I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah,
I was going to mention that. Yeah, that was him, and he's done so many things. But
you mentioned Hollywood cult here too, and I mean, like before we wrap up, I wanted to mention, David, you were asking me to bring this up, but whatever happened to Kabbalah and Hollywood? Like it got really big in the 90s, right? Like Madonna.
Early 2000s, it was still Ashton Kutcher into 2007, 2010, and I know that what's his name, Mila Kunis, and all, like they're into this thing, and they go to and I've seen Ashton Kutcher wearing a Masonic hat. I assume that means he's a member, but I mean. Some people just like good branding. It doesn't have to be, but he does go to they went to Israel to do rituals and prayer things. It's still going on. I think the thing is they've got enough members that they're not really trying to bring in more people to their posse, and it basically is their own Bilderberg,
Right. Well, if you're talking about no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. But Ashton Kutcher is also really like pushing hard on the CHIP program, to child identification program, females and chips.
Who's that pedophile that he made a kissy face at, who ran for president? McCain. Right.
Yeah, that was
So,
John McCain. But you got to watch that full
freaked
clip
me
though.
out. Like, during
You gotta-
Pizzagate period, and he's like, "Yeah, no, there are definitely pedophiles out there," and he makes a kissy face at McCain.
You gotta watch the clip because I remembered that differently, and I watched it again recently, and I was explaining it to somebody. I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I watched it. I was like, "That's actually kind of you gotta see it."
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but from my perspective, it was like hiding in plain sight, and it was so audacious. They're like, "Yeah, there's a problem out there." It was like communists talking about the Red Scare on TV.
Right, but what you extrapolate from it, because the specifics around what he was responding to when he did that, it's like it's actually it's more open than I thought it was. Like I remembered it being like, "Oh shit," and then I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's like really satirical."
Yeah, it's like we don't know what's going on, and he's a participant.
You guys also forgot about his first, well, not really girlfriend, but the girl he was dating got murdered.
Debbie Moore?
Remember that? Yeah, because he was knocking on her door just before the murderer got in. Yeah, that guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, if we're talking about that, can we watch the fucking clip? Is that possible? Or you don't have sound?
It's hard with the sound. Yeah, I get that set up.
No captions or whatever.
I really believe that this girl was sacrificed. I mean, there's something really wrong with the arrangement. the guy who allegedly committed murder, he doesn't seem to be very.
And he shows up with his mustache. Gosh, never never trust a guy with a mustache. Okay.
Yeah, you have more of a goatee going on though.
It's interesting,
Yeah,
like how
just
Hollywood.
a mustache.
When I talk about the Hollywood cult or whatever, it's like exactly this, where like there's just like a dead woman in every in every guy's past. Like John Huston, I think there's like at least two, like that, like his ex-wives died. It's like
on any of us, but I mean, yeah, it's seems kind of weird, and I mean, it's very the idea of a sacrifice or something. I don't know.
Hey, I want to address what you asked, Thomas. So the thing about what happened with Kabbalah in Hollywood. Well, first of all, it wasn't really Kabbalah. What Madonna was in, the Kabbalah Society is its own thing. Like it has, they're like you don't have to actually read the Zohar. You can just have a copy and just kind of look at it blankly and meditate on what the letters look like, and that'll do the same thing. Like they're like when Madonna was asked at one point what is Kabbalah, and she said it's a study of the New Testament. Like that's not even the Kabbalah Society. I don't even know why the hell she would say that, other than maybe she didn't want to upset her like Christian fans or something.
No, because this is just brilliant. That's a brilliant response.
That is kind of brilliant, isn't it? I kind of agree.
This is just like a protection racket. This is where where people put their money, you know.
So I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys, but there was the MDNA tour, which by the way, I gotta say, I don't know if she came up with that or what, but that's pretty fucking perfect, because you're like, that's without the vowels, you know, so you're like spelling it as though it were Hebrew, spelling out Madonna would be MDNA, and then you're like, it sounds like MDMA, and it's like, oh, but anyways, I watched this fucking concert video just for symbolic reasons. I just wanted to see, because the Guy Ritchie stuff and whatever with Kabbalah.
Dive deep into
and at one point I catch somebody in the audience who's got 3 Hebrew letters on their shirt, and they're just there for a second, and then I like wait, and they like show up again, and they show up 3 times, and I'm like, this is a crowd of like, it's a Madonna concert, like this is a lot of fucking people, and they're not the front row. So I'm like, the camera person has zoomed in on these people 3 times. I think they want us to see those 3 letters. So I look up the 3 letters, and what I find is, you know, so the thing is, Madonna has this thing with the Kabbalah Society. They have these these triplets, and there's 72 triplets, and they relate to it in terms of manifestation, because they're all about fucking mammon. They're all about you know, materialism. She's a material girl, right? And so it's like this idea that you can bring things to you. It's all about manifestation. It's like The Secret. You know, The Secret, you know, it's like that shit. And so I go and I look up, I'm like, oh, is it one of the 3 letters, triplets, like of the 72? Which one is it, just out of curiosity? It's none of them. It's none of those 3 letters. It's not one of those combinations. What I find what it is, it means old hag. And so somebody's like showed up to the Madonna concert with 3 Hebrew letters. It just translates to old hag, and I was just like, oh damn. I bet, and I thought about it. I was like, I bet you the camera people didn't know. They're just like, oh, there's some Hebrew. Oh, grab that. Make sure that's in there.
I wonder if this old hag has anything to do with the sleep paralysis old hag that everybody's seeing.
Ooh. Oh, you're taking it to another level. Okay, all right.
Well,
yeah.
No, but that's why everybody calls the entity that's.
I have a new meme, and Madonna. Yeah, I already know where this is going. Thank you very much for that one.
Oh, and speaking of, actually, going back to the Chamber of Reflection, the skulls. Do you know what today is? Is 13th, right? Today is the 15th anniversary of the death of Russert. What's his first name?
Tim Russert?
Tim Russert, yeah. The guy who
yeah.
tried to blew the cover of a
Oh my God! Really? This is the anniversary of that? That's insane.
Yeah, he died
wow.
Today.
Yeah, this guy
also
way to walk into a wall. That's all I was gonna say.
Dude, that guy is fucking out of sight, out of mind, dude. You show me that image and just this flood of shit comes back to me. It's crazy.
Yeah. We should watch a clip of he interviewed both Bush and Kerry.
Well,
I voted for Kerry for crying out loud. I was like, this is not right.
I almost remember verbatim, but he's like, so both you were in the Skull and Bones. The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild, and George Bush's like, I'm sure they will, ha ha ha. And then Kerry says it's so secret that I can't talk about it, and that's basically the whole.
They basically both said that. They said this is a secret. When I'm so
is there
about out here,
Thomas? Is there
his name too?
Do you know of another example between that and when they asked him about drinking wine out of Geronimo's skull and he said, yeah, we did a lot of strange stuff? Do you know of another example where George W. addressed the Skull and Bones shit?
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Okay. Because that's with John Kerry too. That's so weird. John Kerry and George W. admittedly drank wine out of Geronimo's skull. And then just like responding to it is like, yeah, I know, whatever.
They're only 2 years. They're only 2 years apart.
Because that was sorry, you go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no, I'm saying Kerry graduated like 2 years ahead of Bush. So they knew each other. They must have shared it.
No, they were there at Skull and Bones together. As a matter, that's not a debatable point among them. But
they were at the school at the same time. I think they were separated by like 2 years or something.
And after the debate, they went to a barbecue together. I mean, it's not like they weren't like hanging out like either. As the other funny thing, like they're pretty and part of similar lobby groups, and they both had parents that were invested in Occidental Petroleum, so they had shared stakeholding in corporations.
Basically, Gilmore Girls with bushes.
Yeah.
I think it's on the back of Sinister Forces. There's a photograph of George W. with Kerry with the rest of the group with their Skull and Bones group. I mean,
there's no way out of it. I mean,
the other thing that
I was going to show my Paranoid American History actually has a story on. It's called Geronimo's Grave, and what's interesting is that it was Prescott Bush. I mean, the original story, and then Bunny and Neil, I believe, Harriman brothers. I might be wrong on that.
They're the ones
but
who brought this.
They're the ones. They're the ones that actually excavated the skull from the grave and then brought it back. Yeah,
grave robbers, man. These crazy people.
Yeah, and it ends with a nice ends with George Bush.
Dude, the art's so good.
His cheerleader outfit.
Guys, go to Paranoid American and buy these comics. Oh my gosh, these are so good. Like amazing. Really good art. Well, okay, I mean AI, because we got like a few minutes left. I was gonna say like California, duck and cover, because AI self-driving Mercedes are out, and they're gonna kill your dog, and they're probably gonna kill you if you don't have a high enough social demographic.
Is this the ATF now?
This seems scary. I can't believe them. Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like it's the ATF. There you go. I don't know, maybe not that big of a deal, but yeah, we're gonna start seeing this a lot more this year. And the big change is that cars that drive themselves, Mercedes is going to pay the insurance. So if there's an accident, it's all on Mercedes. So the future is really like, why would you pay for insurance when you can just have a car drive you around? And that's going to make de-incentivize people driving themselves. The way we forget phone numbers, we forget where we live and how to drive. What do you think? You think that's going to be a thing?
Probably.
It's unstoppable. I mean, every industry's got the AI.
Yeah, like if I was a cop, I'd be like, "Hey, that car's driving itself. That's safe. That guy's driving his own car. I'm gonna pull him over just to see if he's all right." And at a certain point,
Yeah, actually, it just happened in San Francisco. Like this car just stopped in the middle of the traffic when there was a protest, and then the police couldn't do anything about that car. It just basically blocking everybody. But I forgot. It made headlines, but I forgot the details.
I'm trying to remember. There was a movie that was fairly recently, but it feels like so close now, where like a guy's getting into one of these self-driving cars and it just locks itself, and so, it might have been a Black Mirror.
Oh, Silicon Valley, I think maybe, where it drove
and he just
off the island or the.
Well, it was a way to like assassinate somebody. So they get into one of these self-driving cars, and the car's just programmed to smash itself into the side of some building at a high speed, and then it's like the easiest way ever.
Haven't seen that one, but I did see like so in Silicon Valley, a guy gets in a car and he's taken to like a self-made island, and there's a couple other. There's a show called what's it called? Reboot or something like that, where a dude gets killed and he's put into a VR.
The old cartoon?
No, not that one. There's a bunch of new reboots.
Can I just say, Andreas, that of that whole series with Silicon Valley, that guy that happened to, like where he ends up going when he's just like that he's with there's that Gwart girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he get like the way he gets about it, and he's all big. Like that was for me, that was like the funniest part of the whole show. Like the most I laughed out loud in the whole show was when that guy this like totally got serious and freaked out because he would like talk in German in his sleep. Like towards the beginning, he's like, there's just like these things where you're like, what's up? You know, I don't know, man. I thought.
Oh, Jared, yeah. I like it.
Ironically, it was a Mercedes Benz that Michael Hastings died in. So I mean, on par, right? On brand.
In Upload, which I was saying reboot, but I meant Upload. That's the show where they kill a guy in a fake car crash, and they basically just not quite kill him so that he'll sign the paperwork.
This is it. Yeah, this is the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. Yeah. Wow.
Wasn't there Anton Yelchin, the actor? Did he die in a car? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was hit by a car. So I think I've told you the story. Like,
Jeep Cherokee, right?
I knew. Yeah, it was a Jeep. So I knew Anton. We were supposed to hang out that night. He didn't end up showing up at our party, which was down in Hollywood. And my buddy Adam Lincolnholt was working on a movie with him, and I was annoyed. And like, I still get upset about this. I was like pissed at him. I was like, this guy's a jerk. He thinks he's like so cool. Like, what? He's too busy, or is he just like getting drunk or something? He's Russian, but like, you know, in general, he was. His parents were Soviet ballerinas, like the best ballet performers, amazing physical persons, and chess masters. So, like, I think often about like, what would you do? What would I do, especially in that circumstance? Where like your Jeep is coming at you at the gate, and like you're a chess master, so you know all the best moves, and you're a ballerina essentially. You can do anything, and you're smashed. I mean, it's like the most horrifying. Yeah, I you know,
messed up. That's crazy.
Pretty bad situation. Yeah, because the digital stick, you shifted it, and it wouldn't move the actual physical shifting because it was a digital shifter. Allegedly.
I don't understand. It's like he was driving his own car, and then he got out, and then
so the story is he got out at the top of the hill because it's like one of those sunset hills. Yeah, and he went to open his gate, and then the car kept coming and smashed him because he didn't have e-brake on. Like, you know, a little suspicious. I fully think it's suspicious. A lot of my friends in LA have kind of convinced me to like calm down because there's so many other things I can preoccupy my head with. But yeah, pretty crazy. And he was working on a movie, like he just written his own script that was about these kids who came. I feel like I can tell you, and saw a robbery and like a murder going on, and he had written like this whole thing. You know, he was a really brilliant guy, and he knew a lot. So he was the kind of person and was interested in conspiracies. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had upset somebody. And just, you know, the amount of money that somebody's worth when they die, you know, to them is more. So, but not saying I know that.
Yeah. What was that movie that Justin Timberlake was in? That
Nick of Time.
Yeah, Nick of Time. Yeah, the story with all these kids in the valley, right?
When they were stealing houses, or no?
No. Jeez, what is?
Or robbing people.
Are you talking about the Bling Ring? What's happening? Sofia Coppola.
Well, no, all this time you guys are talking about the actor, right? I mean, the guy who
Anton Yelchin.
Yeah. So what's that movie that okay with Justin Timberlake?
Alpha Dog.
Alpha Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at.
So when he played that role, I already felt like
Cassavetes.
Oh, that was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, dude was based. Honestly, Anton was a base dude.
He got bludgeoned to death.
Super chill.
It's a true story, but it was really weird though. I mean, the way he seemed like his whole career path had just set up to be like this this guy who's gonna be singled out.
He was like definitely one of the best actors. Like he's probably the best. He was maybe the best actor I think I've ever met. Like in terms of his devotion to acting and his skill, I think he was on another level, on the level of some of the people that have already, you know, gone before us. And yeah, it's kind of a sad thing.
He's kind of reminds me of Barry. I've been watching Barry.
Dude, Barry's great.
Yeah, I'm halfway through it, but the whole arc of that movie, like Hitman wants to become an actor. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. What do we know about Yeltsin's past?
It's like the opposite of what's that guy who Palisades Park? You know, the Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. What's that?
Oh
guy?
yeah, with the Paris, Chuck Barris.
Yeah, he's like the opposite of Chuck
up.
Barris, like went in reverse.
Exactly. Yeah, that movie. You know, that Chuck Barris made the Gong Show or whatever, but there was a movie, the Gong Show movie, and that came out the same day and year as The Shining. In this weird thing, and
what?
Chuck Barris is like, I don't know. He's all
There's a Gong Show movie that came out the same day.
Yeah, May 23rd, 1980, the Gong Show movie.
So he was never arrested,
directed by
right?
Chuck Barris.
Was he ever in prison for his killings, or
no? He just
his autobiography.
Claimed these things were true.
You know, Hollywood's got a whole bunch of these people. Like, what's the other guy? Aaron, one of the producers of the Israeli. He belongs to Ergun, and it's no secret. You know, he was financing.
Belongs to Ergot? What?
Ergot, yeah. Wait, is that his name?
Erdogan?
No, hold on.
Erdogan?
No. That's before Mossad. It's called Ergun, right? ER.
Okay, yeah. You said Ergot. I was like tripping out.
Okay. No, not LSD.
It's like, we talking about Salem? What's happening here?
Let's see, producer, gun runner. He was a gun runner, and then but God, what's his name?
I've speculated at times that
Aaron Arnon Milchin. Arnon Milchin. So yeah, he was a killer. This guy was I don't know if he's serving the IDF and all that stuff, but yeah.
Okay.
He's one of those the top producers.
Interesting.
In Hollywood. But he passed away? Oh no, he didn't pass away.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's open about it, but he definitely killed several people. Hollywood's got a whole bunch of these people.
Well,
I think I should show people where they can get more of your content in the meantime while we worry about people who died this week, because there were a few people who died this week. Alex, you pointed that out. But
the Italian prime minister, what's his name?
Yeah, right. Berlusconi.
Make sure you guys go to Synchronous on Twitter, and you can also join his Facebook group to get Eddie's stuff. I'm a big fan of just twittering these days, tweeting. But, you know, the Facebook group is there. So if you're on Facebook, you should join it because it's a great place to get your synchronicity research on.
More people are posting now, so that's great. You know, usually just me busy posting.
That's the thing. I like your posts. So I go to Twitter and I just look at your posts, and there's some amazing stuff. I hope you guys are following because, you know, this is a good way to look at things. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I'm talking about 77 and July 11th and World War III.
Yeah, this is going to be big, man. We're talking about real World War II. I
really love this one, Aleister Crowley's butt stuff and theory and practice.
That's where the magic's at.
Nobody said it would be easy.
It was from the Twitter about
and yeah, we didn't even talk about Andrew Tate's Black Eye Club, but you know, good on him because like if he's joining like from inside of a prison in the former Soviet Union, like good on you, bro. Like that's like the kind of coven cult men's group you want to be a part of. He needed that.
He's safer staying over there.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna be tougher because of it, which is cool. But yeah, Tim Russert. And yeah, make sure you guys go to paranoidamerican.com. Pick up a new copy of the new Homunculus Owner's Manual. Right. I mean, get a couple copies. Get like 10 copies and send them to all your friends.
And also, please follow me on YouTube because once I get to 1,000 followers, I'll drop my documentary that I sent you guys an advanced copy. I don't know if any of you guys saw it yet, but I'm
pretty excited
to it.
Make sure you guys go to Paranoid American on YouTube. He's almost at 1,000 right now, so you guys could easily push him over the limit. Like just you watching right now live, just push him over the limit. Everybody go and subscribe to Paranoid American.
Gimme, please.
Now, I'm not just saying subscribe to him because like I'm his friend. Like subscribe to Paranoid American. You know what I'm saying? Like look at this. Look what you're missing out on in terms of AI art. Like you think I do cool AI art? Honestly, like enough said. Already. Thomas is on it. Thomas is doing some amazing stuff right here.
I love you, man. You're awesome.
I mean, come on. Like, this is...
Shout out to Joel Thomas.
I mean, life is good when you're paranoid. I'm just saying. So yeah, go to Paranoid American, subscribe. Also, Crypto Kubrology, Alex Fulton, one of my favorite people in the world, an amazing numerologist and crypto kubrologist, probably the best, I would say.
Thank you. I would agree, actually.
Make sure you guys get up here, follow him, subscribe to him, repost his stuff, make other people read his tweets by reposting them so that they can be like, hey,
helps.
whoa, I haven't even noticed that before, you know? Change
That
the
helps.
world. God,
And if you have any questions, feel free to message me. It's fun.
What a fun party that led to the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, right? Good
so
times. Cool. And then the Sync book, if you go to thesyncbook.com, you can go to the picture. Where is it? Just go click on videos at the top here.
Or scroll down. Yeah, either way.
Either way, there's many ways to get to Syncflix. But when you get to Syncflix, you'll find just hundreds of amazing. I think he's going to get to 1,000 pretty soon. I'll have to stop saying hundreds. Syncflix, which is great, and there are so many good ones. They're all good. Is the point. But if you're interested in like really weird artistic movies that they don't want you to see, they just want you to watch Netflix instead. And if you're interested in music that is basically subversive and the kind of music that the band gets killed for being in a plane crash over, then you're going to want to watch these combinations of these artistic films with those subversive soundtracks together, which will not only break the hypnosis and mind control that Hollywood has installed on them, but also help you create your own seance and medium work, I'm sure. Right? How's that for a pitch?
That's good. That's helpful. Thank you. Hey, can you scroll to the very, very bottom and then scroll up a little bit?
Sure.
So I want to find
like a Starship Super Trooper. Sorry, I just every time. You love that one.
Okay. There's hold on. Keep going. Oh, it's in the middle, just above there. So let's see where it says 007 Jaws and Sticks right there.
Ooh.
1977.
There we go.
I recommend this.
Here's an example.
So it's Vivian Kubrick actually designed the Jaws of Jaws in 007. So like the villain in Jaws is villain in 007 is Jaws, right? Yeah. So there's this whole crazy thing around that, and the way that the ship opens up, the front of the ship, that was like Vivian Kubrick had her hand in that. Amazing. It's like so, yeah. So this is admitted from the director of 007, Spy That Loved Me, that. Not just a minute. You can watch the interview. I think actually, Andreas, I think you have another video up where actually we included a clip of that where the director describes how they took the other people off the set to bring in Kubrick so he could set everything up, and you can see it towards the end of the film where Kubrick really steps in there. But yeah, so they'll actually pull out a license plate in Jaws at one point. So Jaws was produced quite a ways before 007, but they pull a license plate out of not Jaws, but some shark that they're like just looking to see if there's dead bodies in there or whatever, and the license plate actually reads 007. They'll slide it across the floor. This has Come Sail Away on it. So the album Sticks, The Grand Illusion, was released 7/7/1977, which was the same day that 007, The Spy That Loved Me, was released, and then it has this whole the two shark attacks of the film, not the very first shark attack at the very first scene of Jaws, where it's like right away somebody gets a shark attack, but the next shark attack in that movie corresponds. The bite happens at the same time as the bite in the first shark attack in 007.
Wow,
it's pretty. While Come Sail Away plays, if you started at the bang when the intro to 007 when he shoots at the audience, he's like shooting at you. Like I feel like it's kind of this weird subliminal thing, you know. But like if you do it on the gun, you start the album on the gunshot, then this whole thing happens. You'll see.
Dude, Tubal Cain.
Jaws. Awesome. And make sure you watch Orca and Tentacles probably this week sometime. All right.
And The Visitor, if you haven't seen that.
Before we go, I want to get Dave's idea on this. Recent, what's his name? Miller, the Flash actor. He came to
Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller is awesome, and I'm going to go ahead and be on Ezra Miller's side forever. And I'm pretty sure everyone who's against Ezra Miller either hates themselves or listen to some alt-right media thing that I used to work for. And I'll tell you what, Ezra Miller's not what you think. Otherwise, Hollywood would not be making him look like a bad guy. Hollywood would be pushing to make him seem like a hero. But he's upsetting Hollywood You know,
he's in a $300 million movie that nobody wants him to go to jail for. So
I want to see that movie. I can't wait to see The Flash.
Okay, but I want you to take a look at this premiere. The way he dressed up on the Hollywood premiere. Go to Mailbox. I want to see if David can understand, because it looks to me it's like the Flaming Sword. The
yeah,
777.
dude, he's a hero. Look at this. He's like a samurai. Look at that. It's amazing. I'm just kidding. The X, so I see the Chi row. It's the Chi, so that's the Chi row kind of thing, and there's lightning coming out of the Chi, which is
he's combined them.
It's actually also rune. It's also rune. What's that rune text called?
Not fair that you brought up Ezra Miller at like this late hour of the day. But
I don't know if it can be a Chi row without the like P thing.
I think it's interesting to compare how they're treating Ezra Miller with how they're treating Jonathan Majors, and like what that whole situation is about, because he's been like unpersoned.
The whole thing with Dakota Iron Eyes is interesting because her parents are really, she's a victim of her parents, it looks like, and Ezra Miller tried to help her and ended up like finding her a place to be safe and trying to get her off of drugs because she'd been doing drugs and all that stuff. I mean, the whole thing against him is, I'm pretty sure that they're just trying to shut him down. Also, his transgender thing, I think I showed it at one point. But during his arrest, he says he's non-binary. In other words, only police officers of his same non-binary gender could touch him. So he was able to avoid being harassed by police, which, you can say, oh, well, we really have to do our best for these people that have to arrest us. But I mean, no, you don't. And constitutionally, you ought to just be non-gendered if that's what it takes to have your rights. I think that, good for him. And that's funny because I think at the end of this, you're going to think, wow, Andreas is crazy for saying all that. But just look deeper into Ezra Miller because it's not what we were told.
I think the movie is going to be very symbolic.
Dude, the Flash, Mercury, the Messenger. Oh my God. Flash is actually my favorite old gold era comic graphic novel series. And I thought that, someday I would write, I've written several things for Flash because it is very Masonic, and also the idea that it comes from he's a chemistry major working in the military who discovers the chemicals that unleashes human potential. It's like such an old-fashioned style superhero story. So I look forward to it. It's going to be on the level of Shazam.
I mean, and it relates to the whole 777 shit that we were talking about because it's the lightning flash and David's your whole thing. And so it's like just all tied together. I forgot that the movie's coming out this week just as Trump is 77 years old, etc.
And another funny thing is I started to watch the Good Omen, the series. I just started watching it. The first 10 minutes is about the flaming sword, casting Adam and Eve out of the garden.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait, cool. It's all falling in together.
I look forward to it.
So just to respond to the comments, I my handle's MK Ultrasound and something 723, I think. But I believe I'm the only David Charles played on Twitter, so you can look me up that way. Yeah.
Very good. All right, everybody, find us on Twitter. Talk to you soon, and look into that Book of Mormon musical. Seems like a good one. All right, peace.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.